right, guys, Craig Mack back with another cEDH deck tech. This one is for one of my favorite decks, which is Atraxa, the Grand Unifier. Atraxa is a mid-range deck that relies on Food Chain, Miss Hollow Griffin, Atraxa, and just tons of card draw, mana dorks, and things of that nature to pull ahead in the early game and close it out with uncountable winning conditions later on. This deck is not a top-tier deck. I would say it's not in the Rogfras, Rogsai, Kinnan, or Blue Farm tier, but it is capable of winning at any time. It is fun. It is fun to play. It's different. So if you're looking for something a little bit different than cEDH, why don't you give Atraxa a try? We're going to go through the basic deck construction. I will show you some synergies. I will show you win conditions, and then talk about what you're kind of looking for earlier on in the games and maybe how it plays out against other decks. So jumping right into it, Atraxa the Grand Unifier is your commander. It is green, white, blue, black, and 3 colorless. So it's 7 mana for a 7/7 flying, vigilance, death touch, lifelink. Those stats are great, but that's not why you're casting it usually. Why you're casting it usually is when Atraxa comes into play, you reveal the top 10 cards of your library and you select one of each card type. So this will usually net you about 5 to 6 cards, depending how your deck's constructed. That is good for if you get, if you're behind in a game, if you're locked out of the game for whatever reason. Atraxa will refill your hand, but it will also leave you very vulnerable for the following turns. If somebody's cloning it, if somebody's going for win, you're usually only going to have one type of protection spell when you draw that with the instance. So it's not necessarily something you just want to roll out and jam and try to win that way. It's more of a mid-range deck that accrues value and can present multiple wins in a turn. We'll go over deck construction now. I'll show you what we're running. We are running Teferi Time Raveler. We do run Displacer Kitten, so this is a silence effect. It is in a pinch a bounce spell, but it will generate you infinite mana with Displacer Kitten and some kind of mana positive rocks. We're not going to go in every card like that. I just wanted to explain that one specifically. We are running the full suite of mana dorks. Now, this is debatable sometimes in Atraxa whether you want to do this. In this version of Atraxa, we are, mainly because we're seeing a downtick of Orcish Bowmaster in the format. Rogsai's cutting it, Blue Farm's cutting it, and there's going to be some random black decks that'll be playing it. So for the most part, your mana dorks are going to be safe, barring the Calling Ritual or the one-off Bowmaster. We're running the full suite. We're running Absence Pilgrim, Birds of Paradise, Deathrite Shaman, Delighted Halfling, Elves of Deep Shadow, Noble Hierarch, Bloom Tender, we'll get to in a second. Lotho, which is phenomenal. The Cabbage Merchant, Elvish Spirit Guide, which is kind of a one-off, and Enduring Vitality that will turn all your value engines here into mana producers. Bloom Tender is a late addition. I'm considering Bloom Tender or the 3-mana Cradle Creature, Flip Cradle Creature from Lorwyn Eclipsed. Something along that. Like I had Fairbear Elder there, things like that, but those just seem more consistent. Notably, Bloom Tender can be untapped by Formidable Speaker, which can pretty much produce you an Atraxa on its own. So these are good combos for themselves. The other creatures are running a lot of value creatures. So we're running Esper Sentinel, which is a phenomenal for turn 1 play. Fairy Mastermind, which can lead you as another win condition in this deck and just will draw you a ton of cards. Grand Abolisher for Grand Abolisher reasons. Kinnan will double all your mana, and in a pinch, you could flip it. You're not going to hit much, but that's what it is. Going back to Bowmasters, in mid-range decks, Bowmasters does control the board and warp the game, and you're looking for cards like that early on. Tataru, I'm still a big fan of Tataru. I know some people are off of it, but this nets you 2 treasures. A cycle, these are very important in Atraxa. It also does not get Bowmastered, and lets you draw a card if you're Enlightened Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, that sort of thing. Thassa's Oracle as a win condition. We'll get to that later. Another silence effect, Washi Tongue, which is also a value accrual. Or in this deck, when you've generated infinite mana, and there's ways to do that, Washi Tongue will draw your deck for you. Elvish Spirit Guide, which we spoke of. Eternal Witness. Eternal Witness is a fail-safe in case your food chain gets time twisted, a key piece is time twisted, and it also generates you infinite mana in this deck with Snap. And your Guide's Cradle plans, so it's a fantastic card. Ranger Captain, don't need to say much about that. That can find you on ETB, will silence a board, prevent another person's win, find you Mockingbird, find you Sentinel. Phenomenal magic card, one of the best in cEDH in my opinion when you're not playing full turbo. Cabbage Merchant, bonkers in this deck. Dropping a turn 2 Cabbage Merchant is phenomenal, and that happens a lot, and we'll get to that, the reasons behind that shortly. Displacer Kitten, Displacer Kittening your, flickering your Atraxa is bananas. Displacer Kitten also goes infinite mana with Teferi and a mana positive rock. A High Fae Trickster is a flash enabler. This deck consistently runs on just creature combos, so we're not in Valley Flood Caller. Miss Hollow Griffin, which is the combo with Food Chain. We'll get to those when we get down to the Food Chain, but essentially Food Chain, Miss Hollow Griffin, sacking it to the Food Chain will net you infinite creature mana. Sometimes I will run Eternal Scourge in place of Miss Hollow Griffin, but with Force of Will, Force of Negation, Chrome Moxes, and things of that deck, that nature, I am pretty much sold on the Miss Hollow Griffin camp of this. Eternal Scourge can power you out on turbo turns for turn 2/3 wins, but this is not what this deck is looking to do. Pyrexian Metamorph is a fantastic card. 3 mana lets you copy, any creature on the battlefield, artifact on the battlefield. It does copy Atraxa a lot, and the other thing it'll let you do is when you're going with Atraxa, you can pick the Metamorph as it's either a creature or an artifact and grab something else. So that's the creatures we're running. Sorceries, Demonic Tutor, Finale Devastation, Nature's Rhythm, which is bananas in this deck. Beseech the Mirror, we have tons of black pips, and it allows you to find any of your missing parts, Food Chain or Miss Hollow Griffin, Smothering Tide, anything of that nature. Great card. Calling Ritual. Calling Ritual, we have a ton of dorks. It does nuke our board. Usually when you're Calling Ritual, you are stopping somebody's win and presenting a win yourself. Calling Ritual, usually in this meta with, say, Rob Thras and all of these Dog Thras and all these decks out here, will net you, a Resolved Calling Ritual on turn 3 is, 10 mana, black and green, which can Finale Devastation, Nature's Rhythm, Formidable Speaker into a Thassa, into a Tainted Pact. So it is a win condition on itself. I'd say at least 50% of the time, and that's when you're casting it. Going back to Praetor's Grasp, when we get into like win conditions and things of that nature, this deck does present a pretty formidable end state, and so having a Praetor's Grasp will allow you to pivot if you need to steal a win condition from somebody else, and that can happen a lot, whether it's an Underworld Breach or just another piece from their deck. This is kind of a failsafe for me. This can be Mnemonic Betrayal or Praetor's Grasp. I do like Praetor's Grasp for Underworld Breach, and then Praetor's Grasping again for a win. So that's kind of why that's in there. This is what I would consider a flex slot. Not one that I'm sold on, but we'll get back to that later. For instance, we are running a full suite of interaction spells, just straight counters, Pact, Offer, Flusterstorm, Force of Will, Force of Negation, Mind Big Trap, Swan Song. These cards are phenomenal in this deck. Allows you to protect your win, allows you to survive to late game. We're running Chain of Vapor, Snap, Cyclonic Rift for targeted removal, Swords of Plowshares. Cyclonic removal usually in this deck is a overloaded Rift on someone's end step, which is just gets every removal, every piece of interaction out of their hands to go, and it's also in a pinch just a 2 mana Baby Rift, which helps a lot. And then you have Vampiric Tutor, Veil of Summer, Enlightened Tutor, and of course Dark Ritual will just lead to explosive starts. For artifacts, we're a little light on the artifact mana. We're not running a lot of the talismans. We are running Chrome Mox, Lotus Petal, Mox Diamond, Mana Vault, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Grim Monolith, and Wishclaw Talisman, and One Ring. Notably, the One Ring has synergy with Formidable Speaker, being able to untap it. Same thing with Wishclaw. You can put an activation Wishclaw on the stack, untap it with Formidable Speaker, Wishclaw again, so you're getting a double Wishclaw to set up a win for a turn. There's definitely talk about, instead of the mana dorks running, talismans, more talismans, things of that nature, but I do think that slows the deck down. And without the threat of Bowmaster, I do believe that the creatures hitting on turn 1, multiple creatures on turn 1 is very strong. Enchantments, we're running Carpet of Flowers for that mana acceleration. I have never been disappointed with this card. Even if it's netting you 1 on the second turn, you're going Carpet of Flowers, targeting 1 with an island, playing a dork. So you're already up mana and 2 mana on turn 1. If you're playing a deck with multiple islands, it is a fantastic card. Obviously, Mystic Remora, Rhystic Study. We are running Copy Enchantment with the amount of crazy enchantments that are out there right now. it's just usually a Ristic. It can be a Smothering Tide. It can be a Remora. There's tons of things it can be. It's never dead in your hand. You're copying your own stuff. Just a great card. Food Chain, Smothering Tide. Food Chain's obviously one of the win conditions in the deck. We'll get to that when we start discussing win conditions. And Smothering Tide. I mean, Smothering Tide is one of the things you want to jam earlier on in this deck, and it is, just almost a win condition in itself with Atraxa sitting in your command zone. We are on 28 lands. I was on 29 for a long time. With the amount of dorks, the amount of mana rocks, the rituals, Smothering Tides, things of that nature, I think 28's fine right now. Maybe bumping it to 29. I don't like going that high in cEDH decks. I do not like having Ristics and Mystics and Espers drawing me lands over and over again, unless I'm in dire need of them. And as I mentioned before, we usually are not. So that is a general deck construction. There are some things that I've been considering. Like I mentioned, instead of Bloom Tender, I have been considering the 3 mana new Guy's Cradle elf from Lorwyn Eclipse. But right now we're running Bloom Tender. It hits earlier, usually tapping for at least 3 mana, and being able to untap it and things of that nature is very strong. All right, so moving into general playstyles of the deck. Playstyles of this deck, when you're looking at your opening 7, what you're looking for is some kind of explosive start with a payoff. So you're not keeping hands of just mana dorks unless you're going just on the Atraxa plan, and that plan usually is not going to win for you. So you're looking for, 1 or 2 dorks and some kind of payoff, either being, a Cabbage Merchant, an Esper Sentinel, a Lotho, something along, not so much Lotho, but a Formidable Speaker into something else. Down here, you're looking for a Ristic Study, a Mystic Remora, a One Ring, something that's going to draw you cards, because this is a mid-range deck, and to get to the mid-game, you are going to need interaction, and you're going to need sustainability. So never look at a hand that's just all mana and think this is going to get me there, because odds are you're going to lose one of the dorks. Somebody's going to have a Force of Will for your Atraxa. You're just not going to be able to push through enough in a short amount of time to get there. So you're always looking for some kind of value engine early on. The only time I would say you could pivot off of that is if you have an early win in hand. Like, so if you're holding a Food Chain and a Tutor, if you're holding a Thassa, Protected Thassa, and some kind of, your Demcon or something along those lines, these are ways that you can skip that. The other thing you're really looking to do here is sometimes just Smothering Tide is enough in this deck, right? Like if you're landing a turn, God forbid, turn 1 or turn 2 Smothering Tide, you are going to get to Atraxa, you are going to have mana open for backup, that sort of thing. So you're going to mull aggressively for those, and this deck does mulligan very well. It mulligans very similar to Blue Farm. The only thing that you do not have in the command zone is the Tymna to draw you cards, but you do have an Atraxa. So there's an inevitability to this deck that, like, if you make it to the mid game with this deck, you're very, very powerful, representing Atraxa, representing interaction, representing removal, tons of silence effects. So this deck is very, very good in the mid-range, mid-game, and it's one of the reasons you want to play it. Win conditions. The main win condition in this deck is obviously Food Chain into Miss Hollow Griffin. Now, Miss Hollow Griffin and Food Chain, if you're completely new to cEDH, Food Chain lands, you cast Miss Hollow Griffin. You can sacrifice Miss Hollow Griffin to Food Chain and net 1 mana every single time you do that. Now, Miss Hollow Griffin allows you to cast it from exile. So you are netting 1 mana that you can use on creatures over and over and over again, ad nauseum. So with that combo online, Atraxa just wins the game. You can cast Atraxa over and over and over again, draw your entire deck. You can then play one of your silence effects, play multiple of your silence effects. If you haven't already done so, you probably already have done so if you're drawing your entire deck. And then you can just Thassa's Oracle for the win. That is a clean win line. Not necessarily easy to assemble, not hard to assemble, but one that you're going to fall back on. The other one that's, just Thassa, Demonic, and Tainted Pact, with the amount of creature tutors in this deck and tutors in this deck, this happens a lot. You have a lot of protection spells, you have a lot of silence effects. That wins me the game more often than not, this deck. As I mentioned earlier, Calling Ritual into a Nature's Rhythm, into a Thassa's, into a Consultation. Clear as day, Calling Ritual cannot resolve, and people know that. But there's also other win conditions in the deck that are, harder to assemble, but pop up all the time just in the way you're playing the game. Eternal Witness with the aforementioned Snap and a Guy's Cradle will produce you infinite mana. Displacer Kitten and Teferi Time Raveler allows you to play a mana positive rock, bounce it with Teferi, play the mana positive rock, flicker Teferi, do the whole thing over and over again, and generate infinite mana. That's one of the lines. The other line that you have options to in this deck are Smothering Tithe, Fairy Mastermind, and Kinnan. And like with the amount of Kinnans that are out there, you can clone them, you can play them yourself. You will draw the entire person's deck before they can respond. So that's another alternate win condition in the deck. And then there's just like I mentioned earlier, Praetor's Grasp. Praetor's Grasp is your kind of your last resort or finding a piece to the puzzle. These are how the win conditions normally play out. And again, these are more like turn 4, turn 5 win conditions. So you're going to need to survive to the to the mid game, and this deck does that very well. Against other decks right now, like when we're talking about Blue Farm, which I would put the top 3 decks: Blue Farm, Kinnan, and Rog Thras. This deck can hold its own against all of those, right? Like an explosive Kinnan start is hard to deal with, but we have creature removal, we have interaction, that sort of thing. If they're on the best version of the deck, which is the No Bad Card Kinnan by Evan Pierce, you're cloning their Ristics, you are drawing as many cards as them, and you're getting going. The only thing you're lacking, obviously, with the Kinnan build is the explosive mana, but you have a lot of mana yourself, and if you find a Kinnan, clone a Kinnan, you're in the same boat as them. Against Blue Farm, this deck barring a super early push by Blue Farm, this deck will draw as many cards as them, has nearly as many silence effects as them, and as much as interaction. Against Rog Thras is very explosive. You do have the Bullet Calling Ritual. They can rebuild really quickly, but that sets them back considerably. So this deck does play well into those decks. And especially if there's no Bowmasters running around. I keep going back to the Bowmaster Boogeyman, but that's what it is. Like it is a game warping spell that will change how everything's being played. Luckily, you have clones and you have your own. All right, so that's the gameplay in the deck. Let me know in the comments if there's anything you would change from this deck, if there's any crazy cards that I'm running, if there's tech that I don't know about, any of those things, drop them in the comments. Hit me up on X or any of the social media platforms. We're on all of those. We stream cEDH games almost daily in the morning on the Critical EDH League. So if you're checking that out, drop in, say hi. Like and subscribe, whatever platform you're watching this on. And we'll try to do these once a week, and we'll go to different decks. So this is what I like to call Wing Farm. I hope you enjoy it. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Be nice to each other. Peace.